Have you ever stood by the beach looking at the endless ocean and thought, why do we have water shortages when there's so much water right here? It seems like an easy fix. Just take the seawater, clean it, and drink it. But if it were that simple, we wouldn't still be struggling with water shortages. The truth is, turning seawater into drinking water is way harder than it looks. It's not just about removing salt. It's about cost, energy, waste, and other hidden problems. Let's break it down in simple terms. If you've ever accidentally swallowed ocean water while swimming, you know it tastes terrible. But the real problem isn't the taste. It's what that salt does inside your body. Seawater has way too much salt for our bodies to handle. When you drink it, your body tries to remove the extra salt by making you pee more. But the problem is, to get rid of the salt, your body loses more water than it gains. Instead of quenching your thirst, seawater actually makes you even more dehydrated. If someone lost at sea keeps drinking seawater, they're actually harming themselves. Their body will start shutting down, their kidneys will stop working, and eventually they won't survive. So drinking seawater directly, not an option. But what if we just remove the salt? That brings us to our next challenge. Yes, we can remove salt from seawater. The process is called desalination. Some countries, like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, use this method because they don't have enough freshwater sources. But there's a big catch. It's extremely expensive and uses a lot of energy. There are two common ways to do it. First, filtering the salt out. This involves pushing seawater through special filters that trap the salt. But this process requires a lot of pressure, which means a lot of energy. Second, boiling seawater and collecting the steam. It works, but boiling large amounts of seawater takes an enormous amount of fuel or electricity. Both of these methods make desalinated water 5 to 10 times more expensive than regular drinking water. That's why only a few countries use it, and even they don't rely on it completely. Let's say we do manage to remove the salt from seawater. Now we have another problem. What do we do with all that leftover salt? The desalination process doesn't just give us fresh water. It also creates a super salty waste called brine. And guess what? Most desalination plants dump it back into the ocean. This extra salty waste sinks to the bottom of the ocean, where it kills fish, plants, and other sea creatures. Some areas have become dead zones where nothing can survive because the water is too salty. And if we try storing this waste on land, it can seep into the ground and make nearby drinking water undrinkable. So even though desalination gives us fresh water, it also creates serious environmental damage. Even if we remove the salt, seawater isn't clean. The ocean is full of waste, chemicals, and tiny pieces of plastic that come from factories, sewage, and everyday garbage. One of the biggest concerns today is microplastics, tiny plastic bits that are so small they can't always be filtered out. Scientists have already found these plastic particles in the water we drink and even inside human bodies. On top of that, seawater contains bacteria, viruses, and harmful chemicals from oil spills, industrial waste, and sewage. Making ocean water 100% safe to drink requires even more treatment, which means even more money and energy. Here's something most people don't think about. Where does the energy for desalination come from? Right now, most desalination plants run on oil, gas, or coal, which means higher electricity bills, more pollution, and unreliable solutions. Some people suggest using solar or wind power, but what happens when there's no sun for days or when the wind stops blowing? Until we figure out a cheaper and more reliable way to power desalination, it will remain too expensive for most of the world. Even though the ocean has so much water, most countries still rely on rivers, lakes, and underground water. Why? Because it's cheaper, easier, and better for the environment. Water from rivers and lakes only needs basic cleaning to be safe for drinking. Compared to desalination, using natural freshwater sources is simply the more practical choice. That's why governments focus on saving and protecting freshwater sources, recycling wastewater, and collecting rainwater to use during dry seasons. These solutions are far cheaper and more effective than turning seawater into drinking water. So does this mean desalination will never be useful? Not necessarily. Scientists are working on new ways to make it cheaper and more eco-friendly. Some exciting ideas include new types of filters that use less energy to remove salt, solar-powered desalination, and recycling the leftover salt instead of dumping it back into the ocean. If these new ideas work, desalination could one day become a major water source, but for now it's too costly, too energy hungry, and too harmful to marine life to be our main solution. Instead of depending on desalination, the best thing we can do is protect the fresh water we already have. Stop wasting water, keep rivers and lakes clean, and invest in smarter ways to store and distribute water. Next time someone asks, why don't we just drink ocean water? You'll know the answer. It's not just about removing salt, it's about cost, energy, waste, and long-term sustainability. Until desalination becomes cheaper and better for the planet, our best bet is to take care of the fresh water we already have. If you found this interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep learning together.